You wake up at 5:52 a.m. without an alarm. Your body just knows now. Not because some podcast bro told you to grind before sunrise, but because you go to bed at 9:45 and your nervous system finally runs on its own clock instead of somebody else's calendar. The house is a 3-bedroom colonial in Overland Park, Kansas. Nothing special from the street. You bought it in 2011 for $198,000. It's worth $410,000 today, and it's been paid off for 4 years. Your net worth sits at $2.6 million. Your neighbors think you're comfortable. Not your co-workers, not your brother-in-law with the new Tahoe knows you could pay cash for the house next door. You put on jeans you've owned since 2019. You own 5 pairs, all identical. This isn't deprivation. It's the quiet luxury of never having to think about jeans again. You make coffee at home. Skipping the drive-thru saves roughly $1,700 a year. But the $1,700 was never really the point. The point was becoming someone who asks, is this worth it, exactly once, and never has to ask again. While the coffee brews, you check the number. 90 seconds, once a day. That's the whole ritual. $1.9 million sits across a 401k, a Roth IRA, and a taxable brokerage account. 3 low-cost index funds, nothing exotic. You haven't touched the allocation in 17 years. Not in 2020, when the S&P dropped 34% in 5 weeks, and your account shed a Tesla's worth of value overnight. Not in 2022, when every finance influencer on your feed insisted the whole system was collapsing. You kept your contributions on autopilot every 2 weeks, like rent paid to your future self. $410,000 sits in home equity, fully paid, deed in a fireproof box next to your passport and your mother's old recipe box. $270,000 sits in a taxable brokerage, the bridge that lets you retire before 59 and a half without touching retirement accounts and eating the IRS penalty. $73,000 sits in a high-yield savings account, doing almost nothing on purpose. That's 18 months of expenses. Cash isn't an investment. Cash is what keeps you from selling stocks at the worst possible moment. And $31,000 sits quietly in a 529 plan for your nephew, which nobody in your family knows exists yet. You close the laptop. The market will do whatever it does today, and you will do nothing about it. That single skill took you a decade to build and cost you nothing but patience. You drive a 2018 Honda Accord with 96,000 miles, bought used, paid in full. At a stoplight on 87th Street, a brand new Ford F-150 Platinum pulls up next to you. Sticker price, roughly $71,000. Statistically, he financed it. Call it $1,150 a month for 72 months. You're not judging him. But you know something he probably hasn't run the numbers on. $1,150 a month invested at 8% for 25 years is close to $1.1 million. That truck at the red light isn't a truck. It's a retirement account that will never exist. The light turns green. He guns it. You sip gas station coffee and drive the speed limit. Operations manager, 16 years at the same company, $118,000 a year. Real money, not how is this guy secretly a millionaire money. Nobody suspects the man with the 10-year-old lunch cooler could write a check for the office building. You work because you like it and because every paycheck now is pure surplus. Every dollar you earn is optional, and that changes your posture in a meeting. When your VP floats a plan you know is a mistake, you say calmly, I don't think that's going to work, and here's why. You can afford honesty, the most expensive currency in corporate America, and you're the only one in the room who's fully paid up. 18 months ago, they offered you a promotion, 30% more salary, 300% more meetings, and a permanent seat on a plane to Chicago every other week. You said no thank you. Your director looked at you like you'd turned down a winning lottery ticket. That raise would have moved your retirement date up by maybe 5 months. The stress would have taken more than that off the other end. This is what money actually buys. Not a boat, not a Rolex. The ability to say no. The morning grinds on the way, mornings do. Someone schedules a meeting to prepare for a meeting. You sit through both with the calm of a man who understands this hour is a rounding error in a much longer story. At 10:20, a younger coworker catches you refilling your water bottle. Marcus, 25, sharp, quietly drowning. Can I ask you something weird? You seem like you've got it figured out. I've got about $8,000 in credit card debt, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what most of it was for. You could lecture him. You don't. You remember being 25 with $11,000 in card debt that felt heavier as shame than as a number. Instead, you say, want the 2 sentences that actually fixed it for me? Pay yourself first automatically before you can spend it, and never carry a balance on anything that doesn't grow in value. That's it. Everything else is commentary. You don't tell him your net worth. You never tell anyone. But that afternoon, you send him the name of the book someone handed you 20 years ago. Some wealth transfers happen in ways no bank statement will ever show. Lunch is leftover chili, maybe $2.80 a serving. Your coworkers order DoorDash and complain about being broke in the same sentence. You used to feel a little smug about that. You're embarrassed by it now. Somewhere around your first $500,000, the smugness burned off and something closer to indifference replaced it. Other people's spending stopped being a scoreboard. You're not eating leftovers to prove a point. You genuinely don't want the $19 delivery version more. While you eat, you read, not market commentary. You stopped checking daily financial news back in 2017, and your returns quietly improved. That tells you everything you need to know about who financial media is actually built for. Your phone buzzes. It's your sister. Her water heater died. She needs $1,300 she doesn't have, and you can hear it in her voice. That particular tightness of someone rehearsing an apology for existing. You remember that sound from the inside. I'll send it within the hour, you say. It's not a loan. Water heaters break. That's not a character flaw. You transfer it from the cash account. It refills itself automatically from surplus you never even notice missing. Here's the math nobody puts in a headline. $1,300 is about 0.05% of your net worth. For your sister, it was a crisis heading straight for a credit card at 26% APR. A crisis that, left alone, would have metastasized into nearly $2,000 of interest over 18 months. The best return you will ever get on money isn't in a brokerage account. It's deleting an emergency from someone you love. Mid-afternoon, a moment of weakness. A watch you've wanted for 2 years drops to $3,600. You could afford it the way most people afford a coffee. You put it in the cart, then you run the old filter. Not can I afford it? That question retired years ago. 1. Will I still want this in 30 days? 2. Am I buying the object or the feeling? 3. Who am I actually wearing this for? You sit with question 3 the longest. The honest answer is strangers, and your entire financial life was built on refusing to pay strangers for their opinion of you. You close the tab, not out of willpower, out of recognition. Maybe you buy it in 30 days. Maybe you don't. The espresso machine passed this exact test 2 years ago, and you use it every single morning without a flicker of regret. That's the filter working exactly as designed. Someday, if anyone ever finds out the real number, they'll expect a story, a stock pick, an inheritance, a lucky exit. There isn't one. Your father's layoff at 53 saw to that fantasy early. At 22, on a $38,000 salary, you started putting 15% away automatically. It felt like an amputation at the time. Every raise after that, half went to your life, half went to the machine, until the machine was quietly absorbing 30% of a 6-figure income, and you didn't feel a thing. You stayed insured. You avoided a second car loan. You were unremarkable at picking investments and elite at not interrupting them. 22 years. That's the whole secret. There is no secret, just a long, boring hallway most people exit early because there are no windows and nobody claps in there. You pull into the driveway around 5:45. Your neighbor Dan waves from his lawn. Dan has a boat, a camper, 2 newer SUVs, and a home equity line of credit he's been drawing down for years. Dan makes more money than you do. By every visible measure, Dan is winning. You'd guess Dan couldn't survive 4 months without a paycheck. You're not better than Dan. His boat makes real memories, and there's no spreadsheet for that. But you watched your father lose a job at 54 with $6,000 in the bank and real fear in his eyes. And at 19, you made yourself a quiet promise that no one would ever do that to you. Every identical pair of jeans, every paid-off Honda, every automatic transfer, and that's just a 19-year-old keeping his word. Dinner is with your wife. You didn't build any of this alone. 20 years ago, on your 3rd date, she told you she had $4,000 saved and an actual plan. You knew right then. 4 money arguments in 2 decades, all resolved the same way. A 30-minute check-in every first Sunday of the month. Coffee and the numbers on the table. No ambushes, no secrets. Money problems in a marriage are rarely math problems. They're surprise problems. You deleted the surprises years ago. After dinner, you walk your usual 2 miles. A podcast host asked this morning, "What's your number? When is it finally enough?" You crossed your number about $700,000 ago, and nothing changed. No confetti. The number just got bigger, and you were still the same person walking the same loop. That's the part nobody tells you until you're already there. The finish line is fake. What money actually delivered arrived years earlier, gradually. The day you stopped fearing the mailbox. The day a layoff rumor at work bored you instead of terrifying you. The day you said no to the promotion and slept fine that night. Wealth was never really the number. Wealth is the absence of certain problems. Water heater, no problem. Layoff rumor, no problem. Market crash, no problem. You are quietly a machine that converts money into calm. Tonight you read in bed. Tomorrow there's one meeting, a dentist appointment, and your nephew's birthday coming up. One day he'll open an envelope explaining what's been growing since the week he was born. That will be the loudest thing your money ever does. Today you earned $430 after tax, spent $34, gave away $1,300, and walked away from a $3,600 watch. Nobody clapped. Nobody knows. Tomorrow the market will open. It will rise or fall exactly as it pleases, and you will do nothing about it. Beautifully again. Because when real wealth finally becomes permanently yours, it stops making noise. And so do you.